where I show you my food forest and give you related to the things I'm into growing, like edible plants and also beautiful tropical plants. If that's the kind of thing you're into, go ahead and subscribe. This is not a great phone, but we're going to make the best of it. New phone on the way for live streaming in 2021. Plan on doing a fair amount of it. Okay, so I'm located in eastern central Florida, and we are in the final moments of warm weather before a cold front descends down upon us, which the Northeast and the rest of the country has already encountered intimately. And usually I don't make that big a deal out of the cold fronts coming down, just kind of let whatever happens happens. But this year I have some things that, new things, and I want to really take stock and decide if I need to do anything to protect them. Some of these things are young. Okay, so most of the established trees in my yard are going to be just fine. Even the mangoes. The temperature is planning to get down into the 40s. I believe it will get to the 40s. Mango trees don't like 40-degree temperatures, and you can see this one's already been burned by the last couple times it's already happened this year, but they recover. So, and there's really nothing that I'm going to do to a 30-foot tall mango tree to protect it. And the real danger is that the ground would freeze, because even if they got limbs killed or whatever, you can trim it back and they grow back rather rapidly. So the things you want to focus on are the young things in this case. Well, what do I have that's young? Well, I recently planted a cotton candy tree, very young cotton candy tree right here. And I was wondering how it would do in the last couple of freezes we got, and it's really doing okay. So I'm not going to do much more to it. And this yellowing you see beneath it, I'm sure that's from the salty content of my irrigation, so I'm not going to do much about it. The other thing I was concerned about was this pigeon pea. I've got a pigeon pea here, and probably kind of hard to see without the background. But, ooh, don't break the pigeon pea. It's doing pretty well through the last cold spurt as well, and I don't think I'll do anything to protect that. But I have a few things on the growing table which are definitely going to need to be taken in. Let's take a look. Well, and by the way, go ahead and click on this link I'll add in after the stream if you'd like to see this series where I grew all these things, or I continue to track the growth of all these things, the What You Got Growing On series on Eat Your Backyard. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Use the links in the description to get any of the plants and things that we talk about in this channel. There's actually a lot of excellent plants and seeds available straight off of Amazon. And that's where I point you to. I provide affiliate links to those places, and you can get things like, red kale microgreens, or, oh look, we've got carrot greens here, that kind of thing. But also small fig trees like the one we grew here from a cutting, mulberry trees. Okay, so what are we going to move inside? Let's get back to it. Okay, well, these vegetables actually do quite well with a little bit of a cold snap, no problem there. I'm microgreen growing a bunch of basil here as well, but that'll be fine. What I'm really concerned about are these starfruit trees. And I made the mistake of leaving them out in the first cold snap, but they did recover from that, but I don't want to make the mistake again of leaving them out. They are little dainty things, very tender, and it's probably kind of hard to see with this horrible phone. But there are really little, just brand new growth on there, and that is just going to get destroyed if I leave that out tonight. So I'm going to bring these all inside my garage, which is just a little bit warmer, maintains the temperature a little bit better. I've got 1, 2, 3 of those, and then the one other thing that I'm going to add is this Montingia, cotton candy tree, Jamaican cherry tree, depending on what you call it. It's very small, doing very well. This one I plan to actually grow in a larger pot. I'm going to try to get this one to grow up to be about 5 feet tall before I plant it in the ground. Anyway, so I don't want that to die. It will bite the dust if I leave it out. It will not like the cold temperature. But now, once that tree gets to a certain size, it'll do fine. I mean, it'll get burned. The leaves will look tough, but it can stand a 40-degree day. Probably not day after day after day forever, but can stand it. And in the summer, it'll come back super strong, especially if you know how to trim these trees. Both the Starfruit tree and the Muntingia tree have that same quality. Another thing I'm a little bit worried about, and I haven't really decided if I'll bring them in yet, but are these bananas. These are dwarf, actually one dwarf banana and then a couple apple banana pups that I have growing here. I might bring those in as well. Got a mango tree growing from a seed that I'm not that attached to. I'll leave that out here. But yeah, that's really just about it. And then the rest of my yard, I'm very familiar with the things that are affected by the cold. But I would suggest that you should do that too if you live in Florida or right on the edge of a place that, I'm in a subtropical region, which is kind of interesting because, it doesn't freeze here much, just occasionally, but sometimes it does, and you really want to be ready for the near misses. Many of the things that you're seeing in this shot here are very sensitive to the cold. This is giant ginger, this is a giant lily. Crotons certainly don't like the cold temperature. Dreadlock croton, another kind of giant lily, all kinds of crotons. These are very sensitive, but they're older established plants, and what will happen is typically they'll just drop more leaves. And I'm getting into much more of a permaculture approach, permaculture way of handling my yard, making it more of a closed system here. So the leaves that fall are actually going to go towards just refeeding the yard. I'm going to do much less removal, much more composting. And you can see back in this area of my yard, I've started to already take much more of a permaculture approach. And this actually helps it stand the cold as well. It gives a sort of a blanket when you lay the banana leaves down like this, and that's another approach. Now, if you are going to take the approach of covering your plants, there's a lot of ways to do that. I'll provide some links in this video to things you can get that will help that, like little heaters and things that you can buy. To me, that's somewhat extreme, but if you have something that's cool enough and you want to protect it, I would say go for it. You got to make that call. Many people in my neighborhood seem to cover up their palm trees and more tender growth, like a baby coconut tree would be a good example. That's a tough one. That's a classic example, actually, growing a very young coconut tree, and then having one of these cold events come. Probably not the 40-degree cold event, but if it got down into the 30s, for sure, that coconut tree is going to be stressed out. It might not even make it. A small coconut tree. These are bananas. This is a large backyard area of Musa bananas. But the coconut trees are certainly very, very susceptible. So if I had a small, like my favorite dwarf yellow Malaysian coconut tree. I like the smaller coconut trees because they don't get as tall, much more easy to integrate, much easier to integrate into your yard. But if I had a small coconut tree, I think I would cover it with a blanket, maybe put some kind of cheap little heater in there just to keep it warm. Be careful you don't start a fire. Yeah, Sherry, good to see you. Hope everything's going great over there in England. We actually do get cold. I mean, it's going to be tomorrow morning about 42 degrees. And I can tell you the ocean at the end of my street is about probably 65 degrees, which is not cold by any stretch, but it's cool. That's for sure. And the wind's blowing, but this is kind of the calm before the rain that comes in. What happens is in North America is that I'll just explain a common weather pattern is these cold fronts go kind of dipping down into the southeastern portion of the continent, and by the time it gets to Florida, it's basically a long tail of storms, very intense storms, and it passes through and rains very hard, and then right behind it comes a wind switch and very cold temperatures. And so whereas up in New England they'll be covered in snow here after this thing goes through, here we'll have bright blue skies and kind of frigid temperatures, but it bumps up rather quickly. Yeah, so and I'll actually let you know that I was lucky enough to procure 3 dwarf Malaysian coconuts, and I hope this crapper phone does it justice. What time is it here now? I think it's about is it 4:30? Yeah, close to 4:30 p.m. here now. This is a yellow Malaysian coconut. Isn't it cool how yellow that thing actually gets? And again, just much more of a permaculture setup. I did a fair amount of trimming yesterday, and I'm just going to start letting these nutrients go back in. But really the key with that permaculture approach, I think, and composting in place is to put up a deep enough layer that the process starts. But yeah, I'm hoping some of this will protect some of these younger pups in here. I'll probably maybe pile up a little more brush in here just to give it some protection if the winds start blowing. This is on the southern side of my yard, so here's another part of the permaculture thing, which is to look at the architecture and design of your backyard to make it useful, to make all things serve multiple purposes. And that's one of the things I'm doing here. So the idea of, you know, chopping down the branches to serve as a windbreak, which then the leaves drop to serve as a fertilizer to return the nitrogen back to the soil. That whole system, setting up that cycle, really also depends on accumulating enough debris, enough leaf matter, enough, you know, things to break down. And I've been slowly kind of doing that as I also add in more elements here. But, you know, without that, we get something like this, which is like a, you know, a desert, beach sand, really. And what you really want is an organic, rich situation with bugs and bacteria and all those things thriving in there. And then things like this, these pineapples can grow better. You know, they're kind of starved of nutrients. They have been for a while here, but also opening up shade. And that's another thing as we look at our yards, is the architecture of the yard. Now, I cleared out this huge area here. I have a video I actually put. I'll include it in these videos, in this video as a link, where I cleared this out. But now I'm going to continue to clear out some of the larger woody growth in these fruit trees in order to make more branches for fruit, but also to clear up more space, which allows me to, now you can see this bamboo pole, which I harvested from a clump in my front yard, to plant more things. Now it's shady and partially under, hey, how you doing? Yeah, it's partially under shade now, but once I get this area cleared out, I'm going to have an opportunity to plant one there, and I'm going to plant something else here. Now, I haven't decided exactly what it's going to be yet, but hey, let me know in the chat or in the comments to this video if you have ideas. Definitely considering a grapefruit, even though it's kind of a cliche fruit for Florida. Not that many people really like. I think I like it, and I enjoyed growing one before. So I think I'm going to grow one of those, and I haven't decided on the other one, but I have 2 more spots to expand to. And this little, you know, rubble circle that's around this juvenile pigeon pea, this thing will be springing up in the spring, no doubt, and it'll fill this area with beautiful growth and pigeon peas. So this is going to be a vibrant area that I've been really rejuvenating, and now I'm going to turn it into a living system. You know, with nutrient returns, I'm going to be growing some plants that are specifically for chop and drop type operation, where you return the nutrients rapidly from leaf matter from other plants you grow back into the rest of your garden. I think you could grow grapefruit in the UK in a pot. Certainly you could, and it would probably be a great choice because they're so strong, such a strong grower, the grapefruit, and produce so much fruit. That would be my pick. Maybe a lemon tree second, maybe a kumquat, you know, miniature orange tree third, for growing in colder areas. Just because they're so hardy, they're so rewarding to grow. You'd have a good chance of getting from any of those 3 things I just mentioned some type of fruit, growing it in a container indoors. You just would want to have enough light, really. This is a Barbados Cherry. Yeah, I saw the comment. Thank you. This is my Barbados Cherry. As a matter of fact, it's doing quite well. We haven't seen any fruit on this in a little while, but I think I will this spring. And the reason I think I will this spring is because I'm going to do a concerted effort on all of these trees in the spring to provide them with enough fertilization. The miniature orange didn't survive. Well, that's all right. When they don't survive, it's just a reason to plant something new. Hey, Slightly Stacy. Rexozone. Yeah, we survived COVID. Yeah, yes. Pretty happy about that. Oh, I hope I didn't just trigger the YouTube algorithm. One of the forbidden words. All right, let's see. This Barbados cherry I've been growing as a little tree formed, and you can see the structure of it overhanging. You know, these are small tree-like shrubs, really, the Barbados cherry. And I have the Barbados cherry growing right up next to a Suriname cherry, which is another strong type of cherry bush that grows quite well in many climates. That's a great choice for a container in a place where you want to grow a tropical tree or bush in a container in a cold place and bring it inside. That's another good choice. You know, things like mangoes just get so big you can't really pull that off. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah, big year this year. I'm looking forward to a big year. Lots of possibility in the yard this year. We're going to go full on. I'm going to expand the portfolio of plants again in the yard. I've already got my sugarcane, as promised, up to 4 different types growing right now. Followed through on the What You Got Growing On series. Got all kinds of cool things to grow here. I'm certainly going to be planting this Persian mulberry tree that I grew from cuttings from a very nice neighbor of mine. Got into microgreens this year and decided I absolutely love it. I've been coming out here and eating off these micro carrots and the micro red kale and the micro red beets every morning. Just come out here and just graze on it a little. So cool. I'm like way too excited about red kale, but little baby kale. Yeah, slightly Stacy, time to probably bring that stuff in. Stuff that you know can't make it. Like these baby starfruit trees. Oh, that's cool. Getting rid of the long cherry K. Yeah. Um, I can empathize. We use this lawn for throwing the ball around, my son and I, a lot, so we like to have a little bit of lawn, but as you can probably tell, I'm not that attached to a beautiful lawn. If by nothing else, by this circumstance of having these shaded out areas under fruit trees, it really becomes kind of barren. But this isn't what you want either, right? This barren, lifeless soil under canopy. I think what I am going to have this year is going to be things laid around these trees that naturally return nutrients to them in a much more slow release, natural way. I think that's really kind of what's missing in my yard over the years. Although I've had a lot of success, I really provide a lot of the nutrients that these trees get through fish and liquid fertilizers and stuff. But I don't think you really need that much external support once you get a system going. And that's the whole permaculture thing, is to kind of get a closed system going, even in a small little yard like this. You know, I'm guessing most people just have a, you know, if very fortunate to have a 1/4 acre of land around their house, if not far less, you know. But regardless of the space you have, making maximum use of it and is a big thing. I'll give an example here. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, so I just recently extended this bed out. You put a raw egg in your soil. I would say yes, it would help. I think just about, you know, I put fish in my, and I'll tell you that that's had a great, always has a great result. In an earlier video this year, I'll try to come back and put a link to this in this part of this video afterwards, where I planted these 3. I actually put 1 live cigar minnow underneath each one, and look at them. That's it. That's all I did. Yeah, the avocados from the pits. That's a good one too. I haven't had much luck growing those trees to fruit in my yard just because they're very cold sensitive, but also they're very salt sensitive. So, interesting thing about the avocado tree is also that the male, female, the need to have two in some varieties, and not to have them male, female, both. It's very confusing. But yeah, the idea is the lawn is not that much of a necessity. You can see it's kind of died out, but these actually open up perfect composting areas. And one of the things I'm going to do in 2021 on the channel is I'm going to utilize these for composting and put in red worms to, you know, composting worms to really get it going. Once you start doing stuff like that, you know, the potential is very high, and you can augment with things like chicken fertilizer. That's a very effective thing if you have access to that, or horse manure, or whatever. But whatever the organic kind of slow release fertilizer medium at hand is for your area, I would say get some of that. I have a number of friends who go and they know they have stables that they go to. There's horses around here in Florida everywhere, right? And if you just find a stable, nobody's too bummed about you going in there with a bag and a shovel. And they look at it like gold, right? The horse manure, right? Same thing with chicken manure. If you can get access to that, that's a good way to just, not really have much of an impact and return that stuff right into the garden. One thing I thought about was getting chickens. It's interesting because in Florida, in the area where I'm at, they recently allowed a certain amount of chickens for everybody to have, and you're just thinking, oh, I hope nobody gets roosters. I grew up on a farm, so it's not a mystery what happens when you get a rooster. It's pretty annoying. But anyway, yeah, chickens. So a lot of people get chickens, but chickens can play a big role in your yard in terms of providing a nutrient back. But in a yard like this, chicken's just going to eat that pigeon pea right there. So you got to be careful if you incorporate the chickens. But these advanced permaculturalists, they do it in a way where they incorporate the chickens at different phases in order to make the whole thing go. But typically they say it takes about 3 or 4 years to get your whole system started, where you got the nutrients returning back in, and you're kind of somewhat of a loop. But you get most of the natural systems back in order. And what the natural systems want to live in is probably a pile of leaves. Wow, in Yorkshire, that's so cool. Northeast England. Yeah, how cold does it get in Northeast England? I'll have to do the conversion on the units. I just realized. Yeah, slightly Stacy. The chickens. I've wanted chickens for a very long time in my yard, and I've never quite pulled the trigger. I was thinking of maybe getting just one chicken. I had that conversation with Jack. You want to get a chicken? And he's, nah. If you're not totally into having a chicken, it's probably best not to have a chicken because they are a fair amount of work. We had some chickens where I grew up, and everything wants to eat the chicken, and the chicken wants to eat everything, is how I would sum it up. So, and chickens have a tough time at every step of life. If you leave a chicken out in the rain, it will typically drown, because it'll look up at the first raindrop and just, yeah, not good outcome. So you have to be, like here, there are a lot of neighborhood cats. So the cats are constantly, around the chicken, trying to find a way to get in and get those chickens. The raccoons, they'll find a way to open that chicken cage. So little things like that. But I still would love them. I think it's possible to make a raccoon-proof chicken cage. Yeah, maybe I'll get one. Last time I went to Costa Rica, the hardware store that we went into, I wanted to buy a machete while I was there. The hardware store was selling chicks. And I thought, this is the natural way of things, where you go into a hardware store and you can buy a chick, right? Where people are really connected to the food and the systems in their life, maybe a little bit more so than the grocery store, which is super cool and really somewhat lost in a larger sense. Yeah, Slick Rock, 2 or 3 chickens you recommend? It's a heavy chicken commitment. How much chicken feed does it take to feed 2 to 3 chickens? Not that much. Yeah, grow enough, have enough chickens that the losses to the coyotes are sustainable. But that's all kidding aside. That is really my view on growing things is that the things I grow in this yard are partially for me, but I can't keep up with this papaya tree up here. It's just constantly got papayas. There's probably 35 papayas up there, but I don't get to all of them. But I notice the birds don't miss one. The squirrels, all the rest, they don't miss one. I've got little tortoises that roam around the yard. This mulberry tree is raining mulberries down it all times. Anytime that you go under it, these are little what I call winter mulberries, but they're always there, and they rain down onto the ground, and I've seen the little turtles eating them. The squirrels eat them, everything. The birds eat them. So it creates, among other things, having those kind of fodder crops in your backyard. I would call them fodder crops, but like things that you don't, you like. I love mulberries. I love papayas, but I don't mind letting the creatures come and get some of them now. And it has pros and cons, but oh wow, that's cool. Oh yeah, the flu with the chickens. That's right. That's the other thing. When you get into the thing of having livestock or whatever, or having chickens in your yard, they are dirty birds. They can get sick. So, yeah, but I think the idea of having a system that kind of feeds back to itself is something that I'm going to really have a lot of fun with moving into 2021. I appreciate everybody on the channel being part of the community, and it makes it a lot of fun. This has been a really cool, fun hobby part of my life, doing the Eat Your Backyard videos. I continue to enjoy it immensely, and only wish I had a better phone to share this experience with you on. Yeah, that's right. Create a little microclimate that defends itself. That's right. It's a micro system. And it is, yeah. That's interesting you say that. The microclimate, because in this yard, I'm very keen to the microclimate aspects of it. And by that I mean to the northern end of my yard, we have that fence there, but I've planted everything in order to accommodate for those north winds in the winter and for this south, for the sun. And yeah, everything is picked within the idea of how it fits into the larger thing and how it feeds back to it. But now I'm going to, I think, really just complete the circle so that it's going to look much more wild, probably in a little ways. It's going to take a little bit of a paradigm shift for me to let go of the structure and order part of my personality that wants to have everything very lines, rather than, as Alan Watts would say, a wiggly world. There's a shout out to England, Alan Watts. Sherry. Yep, so another beautiful Christmas Eve. It's actually going to be a cold one here for once on Christmas, which has got a certain nostalgia to it, certainly. All right, well, thanks for joining the stream. Really appreciate everybody getting involved, all the cool comments. It was super fun. Go ahead and subscribe if this is your first time watching. I appreciate it and hope you will join in. Thanks for watching, and I hope you and your family have an incredible holiday, Christmas, etc. Thank you for watching Eat Your Backyard.